Leadership is one of the most rewarding things you can ever step into, but it's not easy. It's not about titles, power, or status. Leadership to me is more than providing a vision and direction. It's about service, and in particular, servicing others. It's about doing what you believe is best, even when it's not popular. It's showing up for others, especially when it's hard. Doing what's best for the people you're responsible for, even when they don't see the full picture. You're doing what you believe is best, even when others don't understand or just flat out disagree. To lead is a quiet weight. It's about the things you're carrying behind the scenes that no one sees. You're making decisions that impact people's lives. It's about trust, accountability, impact. And here's what I've learned. Real leadership teaches you more about yourself than anything else in life. I mean, you learn how to operate under pressure. You learn what your values actually look like when tested. And you gain clarity on others too. Because at its core, leadership isn't about you. It's about everyone else around you. I've learned a lot through my own experiences. I'm not saying I've covered everything in this video, but there are a few important things I wanted to share in hopes that it'll help someone else out, and the first thing is leadership is a thankless role, and that's okay. It doesn't come with applause. You'll do 100 things right and hear nothing. Do one thing wrong, believe me, you'll hear about it. Sometimes it feels like there's a whole campaign built around pointing out how much wrong you've done. And sometimes, flat out, there will be a campaign pointing out what you do wrong. But you don't lead to be thanked. You lead because it matters. I once learned this concept about something called strokes, things people need throughout the day to feel acknowledged. A stroke can be something simple. It could be something like, hey, good job today. Or it could be something like, thank you for helping out. It can also be a backhanded compliment, it could also be a backhanded compliment, like, wow, I'm impressed. Didn't think you would pull that off, you know? Um, and as a leader, you've got to be able to dish those positive ones out, but you yourself, you're not always going to get those positive strokes. In fact, you'll often go without any strokes. So you have to define for yourself what those moments of encouragement look like. And you have to decide what keeps you going, because that external validation won't always be there. But the reason behind what you're doing, that has to be strong enough to carry you through. And secondly, you have to think long term. You can't just lead for today. You have to consider where the group, the team, or the person you're leading is headed. Where they're headed tomorrow, where they're headed next month, the next year, sometimes even years from now. And that perspective, zooming out, is what separates leadership from just reacting. It's easy to get caught up in fixing what's right in front of you, but leadership is about setting people up for what's ahead. It's about investing in who they're becoming, not just who they are in this moment. You're not just managing a situation, but you're building something. And the decisions you make today, they ripple, right? So long-term thinking helps you lead with clarity and not urgency. It's about being proactive and not reactive. And since we're emotional beings, we've got to learn to recognize what we're feeling and identify it, and then have the ability to separate that feeling from the logic we need to lead effectively. And third, when things go well, you shine the light on your team. When they don't, you step in and take accountability. That's the role. It's not about ego. It's about ownership. When things go right, it's congrats to the team. When things go wrong, that's on me. You gotta own it, right? And even if it's a mistake that wasn't fully yours, if you're the leader, you still own it. That it doesn't mean you avoid addressing what went wrong or ignore areas for improvement. It just means the first person to look in the mirror should be you. Leadership is about creating a space where your people feel seen when things go well and protected when they don't. And fourth, what's a bummer about that is not everyone will like you. And truthfully, it isn't a requirement for them to. And vice versa. You may not like everyone on your team. If you're doing this to be liked, think again. Sometimes people will go against you, and it may not be personal, but it'll feel personal, especially when the people you're leading, you once saw them as friends. You may have saw them as individuals you actually looked up to. And as you become a leader, there's a separation that happens between you and those you're leading. And sometimes those you're leading will band together to take you down. It's typically the loudest few of the bunch that are just more vocal. And oftentimes these people care. They're just passionate. They care deeply about the team. They care deeply about the vision. They care deeply about the goal, and that's a good thing. So it goes back to not taking it personally. And it's hard to do that because what they might not realize is the weight you're carrying, the responsibility, the decisions you're trying to make with everyone's best interest in mind. They're looking out for their peers, and you're looking out for everyone collectively. And in those moments, it can feel like they don't see you, but that's part of leadership. You're not always going to be understood, and you're definitely not always going to be liked. And still, you must lead with integrity and with clarity and with purpose. Because fifth thing that I want to mention is people notice how you show up, what you say, how you say it. They'll judge you. They'll scrutinize your every move. But I've learned to see those moments as opportunities to set an example. Because as a leader, you need accountability. And that accountability shouldn't only come from yourself. All the eyes on you, they're not just pressure, they're perspective. You have to be open to the idea that maybe there's something in their feedback or frustration that you can grow from. And it's okay if you don't see the lesson right away. The important thing is if you're willing to just look for it. Over time, as I've learned how to manage my own emotions better, still working on it, and manage difficult conversations better, I now see these moments as opportunities for people to even observe the other side. I at least hope they see the other side, which is learning that it's possible to stay level-headed. It's possible to stay calm. I want to show people how they can lead, show them that it's not an impossible feat for them, show them how to handle pressure. I see it as an opportunity for others to learn in an indirect way by watching me or by watching that example. Learn that mistakes will happen and that I'm not perfect, which leads me to my next point, which is, mistakes are part of it. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about how you respond when you mess up. If you take ownership and grow, others feel safe to do the same. I've made so many mistakes. I've said the wrong thing, misunderstood people, misread situations, even in the way I communicate. I'm still working on that. My communication skills, I believe, have gotten better, from years ago, but they're still a work in progress. And yeah, I still mess up, but I'm human. We make mistakes. and you feel the weight of it, and sometimes it's heavy. And sometimes people are so frustrated and angry at you that they want you to feel it. They want you to feel their anger. They try to anger you. They try to knock you off your own balance. But, mistakes are where growth lives. Leadership requires growth, constant personal accountability, because you can't ask others to grow if you're not willing to do it yourself. The next thing I want to bring up about leadership is that it can be incredibly lonely. I've led during some of the hardest seasons of my life. At one point, I was homeless for over, 5 to 6 months. I was sleeping in my car, at my job. I had health issues that landed me in the ER, number of times throughout the year, and even in a particular moment that I was going through. My relationship with my mom went through a strained phase, and professionally, things were rough, to say the least. I remember showing up to a meeting I was dreading at work. The meeting was to resolve a conflict that was going on, and we got through the meeting. I held it together up until the very end of that meeting. And when everyone left, I just broke down. And I'm not someone who usually cries, but I just couldn't hold it in. Everything I had been carrying, I guess, just came out. It was tears of stress, it was tears of relief, and just flat out tears of sadness. Out of those at work that I was leading, no one knew what I was going through. And I don't think anyone cared to ask how I was doing. And I don't think it's because they didn't care. I really don't. I just think when you're in a leadership position, people assume you've got it all figured out, that you're fine, that you're built to handle whatever gets thrown at you. They see the world through a limited scope, usually just thinking about their own peers, how their own peers are doing, or how they are doing themselves, and they don't always consider what the leader might be dealing with or might be carrying. And that's not a dig on them, it's just human nature. Who knows? They probably said it amongst themselves or thought it, hey, I wonder how he's doing, Nevertheless, I had to show up with my head held high each day. And believe me, it's hard going to a place where you don't feel welcomed, where you don't feel like nobody likes you, where you don't feel like nobody wants you there. And I had to take all the punches, all the complaints. I had to help others feel better, even when no one was showing up for me. And the weirdest part, a couple of those people I'm thinking of were my bosses at one point. They were my boss before I was starting to lead. And you'd think they'd understand what that pressure feels like, but I was wrong. And again, it's not because they were trying to be cruel. I don't believe that at all. I believe most people mean well, but when you're not the one in the leadership seat, you don't always think about the bigger picture. You don't have to. That's no longer your role. It's still possible to show up in that way, but it has to be a choice every day to do that. Like, you have to actually say, no, I'm going to be this every day. But as the leader, it is your role. You must show up for everyone else day after day, even when you feel invisible. Now, don't get me wrong. There were two individuals I thought remained on my team at all times, and without them, I would have exploded. They did their best to see it from everyone's point of view, and their scope is similar to mine, and I still have so much to learn about what they know, so I leaned into that as best as I could, but even with that support, I still felt like the best way I can describe it right now is, imagine you're falling off a cliff and there are, two hands, and those are the two people that were there for me, that they're holding on to you, doing their best to keep you from falling. But at the end of the day, you're the one who has to pull yourself up. They're not actually yanking you up. And all the while, there's a whole city grabbing your legs, pulling you down. And that's the quiet, unglamorous side of leadership that I don't think anyone talks about. And yet, going through that mattered. While this experience was incredibly difficult and lonely, in hindsight, I realized how necessary it was, because today, many months after, I see the benefits that came out of it. So, the next thing I want to mention is delegation. You can't carry everything. And honestly, you're not supposed to. Delegation isn't a sign of weakness. It's how you build a team. It's how you develop people. It's how you make sure the weight of progress doesn't fall on just one person. You can't do it alone. Delegation isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. The goal is never to carry everything on your shoulders. And the truth is, people want to step up if you allow them to. They want to be trusted. They want to feel like they're a part of something bigger than just their individual role. And delegation creates space for that. And to be able to delegate, I get it. It leads me to my next point, which is, as a leader, you must be willing to let go of control and allow someone else to step in. You should train them, of course, but trust is everything in leadership. Trust means living with the outcome of someone else's decision, even when it doesn't go perfectly. It's believing that the person you put in charge has the best interest of everyone in mind. And I'll be real, trust is hard. It's a lot easier to have trust issues, to expect the worst, to want control, to want to control everything so nothing goes wrong. But that's not leadership. That's fear. And fear doesn't build teams. I think of basketball, right? On any NBA team, there's usually at least one player on the team that the team trusts to take the final shot, right? So the time is running out and everyone knows who's getting the ball, and yet they still trust him the most to deliver. It's their best chance at success. And look, no player makes every shot. Sometimes they're not even open, and the other team might know that that's who they're going to, but still they rally around that player, whether they think it's the best move or not. Why? Because trust builds confidence, and confidence creates better outcomes. Whether the shot goes in or not, they live with their decision. And when people know you trust them, they step up. They take responsibility even when they make mistakes, and they do what they believe is right, and you give them the space to grow from it. Now, trust isn't something you just hand out freely. It's earned. And even before that trust is fully earned, part of leadership is allowing people to learn and build trust over time. So that doesn't mean I'm not saying you stop holding people accountable. It just means that while they're learning, you're leading with trust, not control. I've said this word a few times, accountability. So I want to dive into that a little bit more, because I think people tend to shy away from it because it doesn't always feel good. Accountability is it's not punishment, it's ownership. It's not about blame, it's about learning. And that applies to others and yourself. I try to share my own mistakes and shortcomings with my team. Not because I'm trying to relate, but because I've failed so many times. I've had to learn the hard way. I've grown, and I'm still growing. Because while I might seem like I have it all figured out, the truth is I don't. I guess I've just been through the fire enough times that I've learned what the other side can look like. And I try to help others see that. There's a woman named Dr. Becky. Dr. Becky, who talks about something called the learning space. And I really love this concept. It's this idea that everyone wants to get from point A to Z. But real growth, real change happens in the messy middle, the B through Y, if you will. And that space is full of ups and downs, it's full of frustrations, little wins, big setbacks. But when you zoom out, you actually see progress. And that's what accountability is to me. It's owning the middle, showing up for it, letting yourself be in the learning space without rushing through it. And you can't be afraid to hold others accountable either. You got to allow them to be in that learning space and grow from that. Now, One thing I do love about leadership is that, leadership can come from anyone. I've seen it in teenagers I've hired. Some of them just naturally lead, others grow into it over time. But the truth is, leadership isn't about age or position. It's about how you show up for people, it's about heart. You can be a leader. Leadership isn't a title, it's not manager. The two often get confused, but they're not the same. Not every manager is a good leader, and not every leader is a good manager. Ideally, you want both qualities, but they're different. So it's important to be able to differentiate the two. And with leadership, you're not just leading people to follow you, you're leading them to step into their own leadership. That's the goal, empowering others, giving them the space to take initiative and to make mistakes and to figure things out and to find their voice. That's where real legacy lives. Not in how many people follow you, but in how many people grow because of you. Because your growth makes space for their growth. Does that make sense? It's like when you get a peer, they have space to do this too. And the last point I want to mention is you have to view everything that happens as new opportunity. Any situation that happens, good or bad, presents a chance for something new to come from it. It could be an opportunity to do something differently, to reassess something and make it better, to pause, take a minute and reflect, to it could be anything. Not everything will go the way you planned. People will surprise you. People will let you down. Plans will fall through, but every one of those moments gives you something to work with. Leadership isn't about controlling the outcome. It's about learning how to lead through whatever the outcome is. And every situation you face is a new opportunity to lead better, to think differently, and to, continue forward. And yeah, after all of that, you might be thinking, why would anyone even want to be a leader? And honestly, it's a fair question. Because, leadership is heavy. It's not always fun. You don't always get praised. You carry things most people never see, and it stretches you in ways you didn't ask for. Leadership is hard. Leadership is real work. It's quiet work, often invisible work, but it's also legacy work. When you lead with intention, you leave something behind that goes beyond you. You lead because the purpose is bigger than you. You lead because the purpose is greater than your position, your pride, or your need for recognition. You get to make a difference. You get to play a part in someone's growth, in someone's life. You get to help people become more than they believe they could be. You get to be the reason someone felt seen or felt heard, felt challenged, and felt supported all at the same time. You help build something that outlives you. That's why people step into leadership, not for the applause, but for impact. And when you experience that, even just once, you understand why it's worth it.